Evening, everyone. Want to call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Time is 5:46 on the 5th of January, 2022. And Priscilla, if you want to start, just everybody just saying your name.
Priscilla Puente Chacon, present and ready.
Julie Mathibus.
Matthew Gary.
Lucia Rosas.
Janina Ayers.
All right. And do we have any citizen communications?
None submitted.
None? Okay, awesome. All right, next item, we have the approval of the minutes for September 1st, 2021 meeting and December 1st, 2021 meeting as well. Motion to approve those minutes. All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor? All right. Okay, so item number 2, a continuation of a public hearing on a variance request submitted by Luis M. Ainsley. Number 1, to reduce the required landscape, and then number 2, to allow the backing of vehicles into the street right-of-way on property located at 920 Eidson Road. Closing our public hearing and possible action.
Thank you. So we do have the presentation and some information to share and go over with the board, but a representative of the applicant is here, and I believe is going to request additional time due to the time frame that they were receiving notice about this particular meeting. So you want to just discuss that?
Yeah, just reviewing the code. I mean, we got notice this past Monday, the setting for today. Supposedly in the code, it requires a 10-day notice from the date that the notice gets sent out and it's received. Now, obviously, we do not have that notice. And the reason I'm asking for it, I would like to prepare something for this board that would have all the issues that I'll be going through, in addition to the code as I read it and as presented to the public. So I'm asking for at least 30 days, or even 10 days would be good enough for me.
We reconvene the first Wednesday, so it would be, the next month. You would have about 30 days.
That'd be great if I could have
February
something like that.
2nd? February 2nd.
It'll be great.
So I don't have it. I think it's a fair request by them, but if the board would allow, I still would like to present, because I think with the latest submittal from the engineer working on behalf of the applicant, I feel like we're very close to complying, where we may not even, the variance may be a moot point at this point, but we're really close to actually getting into compliance, which was, the goal all along.
Right.
I think we should hear what they say, because if we can get the goal to where they don't even need to apply for the variance, then that'd be very, very
Yeah,
beneficial.
just looking over it, it looks like with all the parking changed and the grass added, it it looks like it's close, like you said.
Yeah.
So,
And if after, you still prefer that we table at the end, I think, the board can definitely consider that.
So, I mean,
Well, if staff's position is that the application as revised meets the code, then the variance is moot and doesn't need to be presented.
It's close. It's not
Okay.
quite there. A minor change, I think, would get it to compliance.
So basically what we want is just a status.
We could provide that.
Yes, let's just get a status, and then someone can move to table.
Or to continue upon the request of the
Yes.
applicant.
well, if I may, I mean,
whatever.
the application was for a variance. What you're saying is that we're not going to hear the variance on its merit, that you're going to force the individual or my client to comply with the code. I mean, so you're doing away with the whole application,
No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that you all are close to meeting to an agreement.
but we're not there yet.
Right, so we're just gonna hear a status like where you all are at.
Well, I mean,
We're not gonna make any decisions right now.
will can that be hold off until the following meeting? Because, I mean, why are you going to start something and then not have
We're just gonna hear.
my input on it?
No, we're just gonna hear status.
It's like, on Tron, just hearing one side.
No, we're not asking for merits today. All we're asking is to hear a status. I think we wanna know so that we can understand, so that when you all come back, the board can vote on, make a decision.
Yeah, they can have the public hearing, hear some comments, they can close the public hearing, and then they can take some action on your request. If they grant the continuance, then the matter's granted, and if they don't, then they can take action. So why don't we just continue with the public hearing? You've stated your position, the city staff can state their position, and then once that public hearing is closed, a motion can be made by someone on the board, and then they can take action. And we recognize that there's a request for a continuance.
Regardless, I want to be heard before any adverse decision goes against my client.
Yes, the
So,
chairman
I
will
mean,
let you hear.
if that's what you're saying, that he's going to give the presentation, and then after, it will be a status update, and then they'll get to decide on my continuance, then that's fine. I mean,
I'm more than sure the chairman will let you speak.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
all right, thank you.
All right, so very quick recap, as you know, we've talked about this one in previous meetings. The applicant is Luis M. Ainsley, the property location is 920 Eitzen. It is Zone B3 General Business District, and the request here is a variance for reduction of required landscaping and to allow the backing of vehicles into the street right-of-way. And those two are variances per the obviously landscape code, and then the maneuvering, off-street parking and maneuvering ordinance. There's a quick aerial. This was an original layout. At a previous meeting, we discussed some other ideas of being in compliance. And here's a zoomed in area. I think this would be the important one to provide that update that we're talking about. This is the latest that we received from Mr. Canales, the engineer. And this takes in some of the notes and comments that were discussed by the board at the previous meeting. So it would allow for entrance towards the north part here of this picture, the higher part on the screen, off of Eitzen Road, and then you would turn in and park. And they would have 2 parking spaces here in the front of the building, perpendicular to the building and parallel to the street. So being with the size of the building and office, we could work with this limited amount of parking, so that's not part of the concern. They also did depict with a green, basically T's or plus looking items, landscape area. That would more than cover the requirement. This proposes, the notes here show approximately 1,000 square feet of landscape in that front area. And then you can see a little bit more along the sides and rear, totaling 735 for a total of 1,735 square feet, which is way more than what's required here. If you look at the notes below, we calculate the required based on the total impervious cover, which would be all the concrete paved areas and buildings, roofed areas. So that's about 5,700 square feet.
So they don't need the variance anymore for the landscape?
For landscape, based on this new layout, they don't need it. They already
So they're
qualify.
okay?
So they would only actually need 860 total square feet, and this proposes more than double at 1,700, so that would no longer be
Be no
needed
longer-
if
it's
they
moved.
would proceed with this layout. 50% of that 860 does need to be in the front yard area, basically meaning from the building, between the building and the street, which would still be on a fairly small amount, 400 square feet. Required trees here, based on this amount, would be 3, and required shrubs 6. There would definitely be room to do that in that 400, 500, or up to 800 square feet if they want to do it all in front. And they could even eliminate that rear landscape that's depicted there. And the one concern here, when it comes to the other variance, is to request the backing into the street. That's because they don't have the required off-street maneuvering space. Based on this new layout as well, they do have almost the required space needed. It is 24 feet, and 24 feet is shown from here to here, but it's not clearly shown here. It appears they have 18-foot parking stalls instead of 20 feet deep, which is our requirement. So essentially, if that area was just moved a few feet down, they would then have the correct size of parking space and the 24 feet maneuvering, so that somebody could reverse and then exit out going forward. So then neither would be required, neither variance would be required, because at that point it would be in compliance. So we're very close, and I wanted to just share that with the,
So if he gets rid of that area where he has the grass on the top, would that be that extra 2 feet that you need?
Yeah.
it potentially could, I don't know the exact, it's not depicted exactly what that measurement is, but that would get them some of that, if not.
Because he won't need that now because he has so much landscaping in the front now.
If they use that in the front, correct?
So he's short 2 feet
For the parking space.
for the parking space?
Correct.
So if he takes, I mean, I guess the question, if he takes 2 feet from the top, pushes it 2 feet into the landscape where he has, would he be in compliance even with the landscaping?
Pushing it down?
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Either way, yeah.
And he'll be in compliance with landscaping too?
yes, both.
Well,
So we-
Mr. Madera's saying that he has enough landscaping that he can even get rid of the landscaping in the back. He doesn't even need that.
Even with the
anymore.
2 feet?
Yeah, this is approximately 1,000, so there's quite a bit to work with to still maintain the 860, because the other 700 is in the back, so if we just look at this as about 1,000, the 2 feet would only take 2 times, somewhere around 150, so it would still be pretty much right in that area. They could maybe keep a small amount in the back if necessary, but basically they're right there in terms of compliance. Now, I know in the previous, well, I mean, I guess that's the main thing, we're pretty much there, so I wanted to share that with the board, and I guess at this point, you know, maybe we want to have the applicants share if they're comfortable with this, you know, that they're good, or if they want to still continue with the variance to reduce, so that they don't have to do that. I believe that's what I was understanding that the gentleman was stating.
Yeah, we still want to go forward with the variance. I mean, you're requesting 50% of the property there to be landscaping, when all throughout El Nino and Veterans, there's almost 80-90% of the businesses don't have any landscaping. I mean, 50% of your property just dedicated to landscaping? That's only 2 parking spaces. You're asking for 4. I mean, any decent office that brings in decent foot traffic will require more than 2 parking, especially one is dedicated to handicap. So that only leaves you with 1 parking space open to the public. I mean, people are gonna be working in that office. Where are they gonna park?
Don't they have parking spaces in the rear?
And that's my understanding, is that would be the
That's what
part, the employee in the rear area.
that's what the engineer had stated last time, right?
The parking is being actually constructed for other reasons than parking space. I mean, there's electric gate already in place to protect some of the property that my client has there. You open that up to the public and you're endangering his personal property for vandalism.
On the specs we received, it says that that's carport parking for the employees. The plans that he submitted.
I know, there was a lot of things that were submitted by the engineer.
No, this one was by your
Obviously,
client. This one wasn't by the engineer, this one was by your client.
like I said, I just visited that property, and I just conferred with my client. I had 2 days to come in and obviously put something together, and it's not very much time for anybody to put something together. So I'll feel more adequate once I have all the information and I'm fully prepared to go forward on the variance.
Are you still requesting that the board table?
I'm still asking for the 30-day
Okay.
session.
Real quick, Placido, before someone makes a motion, last time, did I hear you correctly saying that during the construction, when they were doing their construction there, that they didn't have permits that they would construct, and then you all would see them and stop because they wouldn't get permits?
Yes, that did happen on more than one occasion.
Can you please clarify, explain that to me a little bit? Like, so what were they constructing and what didn't they have permits for? Do you recall, or just a general?
Yeah, I think I got it here on this slide. So the first time was in August 2020. Work was being done without a permit, renovating the main building. There was a previous residential type single-family structure, and that was either removed and reconstructed to what is now there, or enlarged and modified. So from the very beginning, they started the work without coming to us with the plans and going through the process. So when we stopped them and asked them to come in, they gave us fairly limited plans. It didn't include those carports in the back, it didn't include the paving of the back area. You know, showed us, I guess, a small picture of what is now actually built out on the site. And then again, later, as time passed, more construction would start taking place that was not in the plans that they gave us. So we would stop the work again, and they would give us more. But it was kind of just a back and forth until recently. Now they're working well with us. They give us these good sets of plans. It's pretty much in compliance. And so this is basically what we were trying to get to from the beginning. We could have avoided a lot of this if we did it.
I don't want to be out of line, but I mean, we're going into the merits of the variance. They're involving information that's poisoning the pool without even hearing the variance application yet, or hearing my side to it. I mean, if we're going to lay everything out, then I'm requesting more time to get that information presented to the board. I mean,
We have the right to
Well,
ask questions.
I understand what you're saying in this, but this was all presented at the last 3 times that we've heard the application.
Can you turn that?
This application has been heard 3 times already.
now he has an attorney. Now he's going to rely fully on me, and I'll be presenting the case to the board.
Right,
And, I mean,
once we consider your motion to table.
mhm.
So I'll move to table.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to second?
Um,
Oh, we have to close the public hearing.
Let's close the public hearing, and if you want to make the motion to a specific date certain so that they have notice when they leave here today, that this will be held at the next hearing before the Board of Adjustment on the first Wednesday of the month, then they have their 30 days or 29 or
Well, maybe
whatever.
we'll want to hear if there's any comments from the community.
Yeah, is there any
before-
other comments that anybody?
Or from the community, have we heard anything?
No other comments have come into us.
Okay.
I don't believe we have anybody
Alright,
on
we'll
the
close.
online either.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
No.
I'll
Table
move
that.
to, well, we have to close the public hearing.
Okay.
So you can just state, close the hearing at 6:03.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, we'll close the hearing as of 6:04 PM. All right.
I'll move to table to our next scheduled meeting, which is February. what is it,
Third.
February 3rd?
Second, sorry. Yeah.
February 2nd.
Okay. Second, anybody would second that? Second? All right, all those in favor?
And I abstain.
Who abstained?
Lucia.
Well, it's not going to pass.
Because there's 5?
Yeah,
Yeah, it passes.
it does.
Yes.
Oh, because there's 4.
Four, yeah.
24, right?
And you can vote on, just FYI, you can vote on matters even if you weren't present.
Yes, she was like.
No, I was present.
Okay.
She abstained.
Okay, so item number 3, I'm going to have to abstain from this item. Alternate Vice Chairperson, Mrs. Priscilla Chacon, is going to
Take over.
Mr. Gary, I don't know if legal or city secretary can comment, but it was explained to me that you don't have to actually
I don't have to step out?
excuse yourself from the
Okay.
room. If you wanted to abstain from the vote, you can, but
Sure.
you could remain. Is
Okay.
that, can you confirm?
He doesn't have to wait.
Yeah, the only reason you may want to is because someone may say an expression or facial expression, or there's some thing that was happening. It's just the conservative thing to do.
Put on
Put on your mask on. Your eyebrow, you raise your eyebrow.
No, that's okay.
That's the only reason.
That's all right.
No, go ahead and excuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's my-
I'm going to open the public hearing for item number 3 for continuation of a public hearing on a variance request submitted by ZBAA Cardenas to reduce the required front yard building setback area from 25 feet to 13 feet 2 inches to allow for the construction of an attached carport on property located at 2179 Ricks Drive. Closing of public hearing and possible action.
Yes, thank you. So this one, we don't have much to update. I think we presented basically all the information we have at the last one, but if you like, I'll give a very brief summary of it, and then do you want to ask?
a brief, if you can be so kind.
Okay, so very, very briefly, this applicant is Berta Cárdenas. The location of the property is 2179 Ricks Drive. It is a residential R1 zone district home, and the front yard setback there, as well as in most all areas of residential, is a 25-foot front setback, which she's asking for a reduction to build her carport, or to build a carport. This is off of Del Rio Boulevard. There's a photo here in your packet of the home, the existing home where she would like to build a carport, showing where her vehicle is to cover, protect the vehicle. And we did do some review of the area and found that there are some other properties in the area that do also have encroachment into that front setback. We did send out notices to the abutting property owners and did not receive any letters in return. Any other specifics you want me to touch on?
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Madera? No? No, Mr. Madera, thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we hear from the applicant? Good evening, Ms. Cardenas.
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And,
Go ahead, you have the floor.
well, I'm just asking you for the permit. If you don't allow that amount of encroachment, you can set me another measurement. And it doesn't block anything. It's not a corner lot, and it won't affect anyone. And it also will help the city to charge more taxes. Entonces, I'm just asking for your permission. If I really appreciate your time. This is the fourth time that I'm here. And that will be all.
Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Cardenas?
Have you incurred any expenses since your first application?
Yes, it's been like $400 or something, a little bit more, to make the application and to be here.
Any other questions of Ms. Cardenas? Thank you, Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from online, from the community or from the public?
No, we don't.
No?
Double check if anybody's online again, but I don't think we do. No, we don't.
Okay. Any discussion?
Let's close the hearing.
Let me close the hearing. It's 6:09 PM. Do we have any motions?
With my notes from last year, of December the 1st meeting, there was 13 notices that were mailed out and there was no response. There's no hindering in lighting, and the fire marshal sees no health and safety issues. So I would approve the variance for Ms. Cardenas at this time for her request to have them build her carport.
As requested.
As requested, yes.
So
So
your
you're
motion
making the motion? Yes, I'm making the motion that.
to approve the
To
variance.
approve the variance, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
If I may, before you all vote, remind you of the standard.
Well, we know the standard, Mr. Fletcher, and I think we've had discussion on this multiple times, and I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, I still feel as counsel, I need to remind you of the standard that you're bound by,
Right.
and it
Right,
requires
we're gonna
a hardship.
We're going to close, and we understand that we've already discussed all of that. But I think.
Well, I'm going to repeat it if I may for the record. There was a discussion regarding how much money was spent. There is a new code and state law that allows the board to consider financial matters. And state law says a variance may be granted if it's not contrary to the public interest and due to special conditions. Literal enforcement would result in an unnecessary hardship, and so that the spirit of the ordinance is observed and substantial justice is being done. State law goes on to say, when you're looking at this, you may consider the following as grounds to determine whether or not there is an unnecessary hardship. One, the cost of compliance is 50% more than the appraised value of the structure, which is not an issue here. Two, compliance would result in a loss to the lot on which the structure is located of at least 25% of the area on which development may physically occur, which is not an issue here. Compliance would result in a structure not being in compliance with the requirements of a municipal ordinance.
Mr. Fletcher, you're
Which-
giving us legal advice right now, right? Wouldn't that be more appropriate in chambers?
Since this is state law, I feel that it's unnecessary to go into closed session.
Right.
But if you have to ask questions about it, we can certainly do
I don't
that.
think we have questions, and I think that we got the gist of it, because I believe you provided us a copy of the statute. Everyone received a copy of the statute, correct?
Again,
Yes.
if you want to disregard the law, that's fine. I'm just going to state it for the record.
And I have a problem with you stating disregarding the law. I believe that we all are taking our positions very, with the
Let me
law.
rephrase.
Yes, and
I'm
that's
simply
what our
stating the
duty
law
is.
for the
I
record.
don't think any of us appreciate that, considering what we're pointed to, but we have a second. Can we get a vote now? All those in
If I may be
favor?
permitted to finish,
No, we're done. All those in favor
I
of the
will repeat
motion?
unreasonable
All-
encroachment
All those
on
in
adjacent
favor?
property not an
Aye.
issue.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. The motion passes. Will someone let Mr. Gary know that we're ready?
All right, thank you.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, thank you. All right, so item number 4, for other business, we have a discussion and possible action on the adoption of a revised variance application.
Yes, we got a presentation, we provided you with some documents. Definitely understand if we want to just make this only discussion only today. I know we didn't give a lot of time for you to look at those documents, we just sent them over. But we can definitely discuss, I guess, our process here and get input at the very least. And thank you for the suggestion of looking into this. I think, you know, we after doing some research, we definitely found some room for improvement here. So what I'll show first is the existing variance form, which you're all very familiar with. Those are in the packets every time with everyone's existing applications. A lot of boxes, some of the questions are somewhat similar or redundant.
Right.
So there was definitely some room to improve here. And what we did was we looked at some other cities to start our research and see what areas we can find that reinvent the wheel. City of McAllen, sorry about that typo up there in McAllen, but City of McAllen, we found some things we like quite a bit on their application. Very clear boxed sections of their application that says who needs to fill out or what they all are, what it is, who the applicant section, the owner section. Very nice and organized the way they have their information laid out. And then the second page is reason for appeal and board action. They have 4 bullet points or 4 sections to fill out, and those tie pretty directly back to their ordinance and the criteria, which I think makes a lot of sense. Our form had a lot of questions for information that didn't necessarily tie back to the criteria for when a variance is applicable. So we definitely like that a lot, that model of tying back to directly the ordinance. And then at the bottom, they also have a board action section directly on the application itself so that we keep everything together. You know, whatever the decision of the board for an application is, it's signed and dated on there. We keep it in the file and everything is together. It's on record. So that was also a very a nice feature that they have on there. And also it's 2 pages, much more streamlined than the 4 pages that we have. City of Laredo, not so streamlined, 5 pages total. Their first page has quite a bit, the basic information to fill out. And then a second page has required documents checklist, which is a key component.
It looks like they can fill it out online.
Yeah, it is a fillable document. That's a good point. They had the third page, a full page for certification and signature, which I think was a little excessive. It was kind of only a quarter of the page was filled and the rest was blank. And then they had a last page of bilingual explanation, English and Spanish, of the site plan requirements that go along with a variance application, which I thought was good too. although it did just turn it into a kind of a lengthy document of 5 pages. We also looked at City of Schertz. They had something similar in terms of the 4 numbered points that tie directly to variance criteria to fill out and explaining why the applicant feels it was necessary. And then they also had a very clear checkbox for the requirements for the form. That way people don't forget something, miss things, and, as we've had in some cases here in our meetings, they forget some required documents, and it causes delays. So we definitely got some really good pointers by looking at other documents, and so those are the key observations we had. They all have to have the basic info of the applicant. The requirements and a checklist or a guide to make sure that they don't miss anything is a key component we saw. Tying directly to the criteria for variances also made a lot more sense than all the questions that we have that didn't necessarily tie. And the board action and signature section was also a pretty good feature we may consider squeezing in if we can. So we have this proposed version. You have a copy in the packet there before you. It should be it should say draft at the top. I think it might be your 3rd page. And it basically ties in a lot of those components that we saw from the other cities. A very clear section to fill out of what the application is, what the project is, and who fills out which sections. A much more streamlined details and explanation of why their application for variances is necessary and meets the criteria of the code. And then the checklist to make sure that they are not missing anything when they turn it in. So that's what we came up with as a draft. We'd definitely like to hear any comments and suggestions you have.
This is enough for adding the help section where the chairman signs off, so we're gonna add that.
I like that. I was gonna say, I like that section because it stays together when you store those documents electronically. You all store them electronically right?
Yes.
It
Both.
makes it easier to find everything together.
So I was just going to mention, if the board is considering adopting an application, the rules provide that you can adopt rules of procedure. So if you're going to adopt an application, then it needs to be part of the rules of procedure. I know we provided you all with a draft of that, so I would encourage you all to consider including this application as Exhibit A to the rule of procedure if you want to adopt this formally.
I wanted to review it for a little bit more time. Are we able to do that?
Yes.
Paul? And I don't know if that would require it to be tabled, but
Yeah.
I'd like to review it and kind of compare it a little bit more, and then maybe bring it up maybe at that point we can move to what you were talking about. What do you think?
I think so. I think we should table it so that we can look at this. And I think Placido, Mr. Madera has really great ideas like what he put in here. And I think it makes it very efficient and cost effective too for everyone to get everything that they need. So I agree, so that we can review it and see if we have any recommendations, or maybe you all come up with more ideas for the next term. I like the way that, I like the draft, but I agree. Anyone else?
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
From legal's
That's
perspective,
awesome. Y'all did a lot of work in a short period of time, so. that's
Thank
really
you,
good.
Mr. Madera.
Sorry,
Thank
Paul,
you.
what was that?
I was going to say, from legal's perspective, it may be beneficial to include the criteria that the board is going to consider when granting a variance, so that there's no surprises that someone's asking for a variance that may not technically meet the criteria.
Yeah, so we did include those directly from our ordinance, from section 2311, so numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, when they fill out the second page on the draft.
You said 1, 2, 3?
Which one?
The second page,
Second page,
The back of it, yeah.
so 1, 2, 3.
like 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, this page.
Here you go, Paul. It might be like, but that's the draft.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Number points, we pulled them directly from the criteria from section 23-11. That way what they're filling out in their application is timed directly to it.
The but this doesn't track everything.
Okay, so I guess I'll move to table the application.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, are there any other items to discuss, or anything, anybody have anything?
Just to clarify, we're gonna table it to the next meeting, correct? To the February meeting?
Yes.
Just to clarify, any, I guess, homework on our end that you specifically want us to work on with this, or is it mainly just for you to have more time to review?
I think it's just enough time for us to review it, so
Okay.
we can sit down and digest it, and then if I have any questions, I'll shoot you an email.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank y'all for your team, y'all did a good
Thank
job.
you. Awesome.
I think
Yeah.
it's really nice, so.
Yes.
Need to give credit to Maribel Rodriguez, helped with
Okay.
this, and then Agustin Valle
Thank
as
you.
well.
Awesome.
We have a new associate planner, and he helped do some research for this as well, so.
Good.
Team effort.
Excellent,
And it
excellent.
seems that it's gonna help these things for your department too, right, in processing the application?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, especially that checklist and making sure they're not missing things, so we're not back and forth with them, it'll be a huge help.
Yeah, so you think if Placido, for you guys, it's good too?
Yes.
Definitely.
As well, so
Yes.
it's an improvement, that's awesome. That's good to
Definitely.
hear.
I do have a question, Paul. Going back to the legal public hearings, knowing that San Antonio Express thinks that they don't deliver to the city, we can subscribe digitally, but there's no paper being delivered to the city. Do you think,
Do we still have to comply with the second-class postage for publications?
Yeah, I know,
That is our
we're trying to get
question.
that change in the legislature for
I
the
know,
last
it is.
10 years.
yeah,
I think the conservative approach is to advertise there and in the local paper. You know, you can't give, there's no such thing as too much notice. And
Yeah.
ultimately, you're just trying to inform the citizens what portions or parts of the code may not be complied with because the board may grant a variance to them.
So what you're saying, Maribel, is that if we didn't have to put it in the San Antonio Express News, then the cost would be significantly less?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It would
Yes.
drop.
yes, ma'am.
But it's state law.
Right.
Yeah.
But 10 years doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's
legislative.
that's-
Strong newspaper lobby.
Yes. That's a, thank you, Paul.
All right, well,
I don't know, when I was working at the guide, we did all of this. We handled the school and this and everything. I don't know what Rex had at the time. Obviously, he had the second-class mail. Can we approach, what's his face? Masuka?
Mr. Masuka,
I don't know.
they
If he has to-
say they can't because it's expensive. That's one of the main reasons a lot of the newspapers dropped their second-class postage.
But my goodness, I'm sure he can afford it.
Well, I don't know.
I'll ask him, I run into him, I'll ask him, hey, pues, ¿qué onda, qué pasó? Why did the guy have it and not you? Well, whatever.
That's when people used to read newspapers.
Right, now you just pay 99
Okay, well,
cents
that's,
in 6 months.
you have an excellent point there. All right.
That's
All
when
right,
we used to
any other
advertise
items?
real estate. in
Yes.
newspapers.
What's
Not
the
anymore.
section of the code that y'all are referencing for the notice requirements, for the publication?
State law, but I don't know it.
Yeah,
Right,
We
what's
should know it, right, Paul?
Uh,
We deal with
I
it.
don't know it by heart.
Hardly, I can't remember it.
Because it says about, well, perhaps Paul can get that to us, what section of the code it is.
Wow.
Anything else?
no? Okay, well, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Have a second?
Second.
Like that.
All those in favor? All right, time is 6:25 PM.